is getting down to business. And we're looking at the business aspects of running a web design business, whether you be a freelancer or an agency. So we're going to be talking about all the kinds of things that we'd prefer to normally ignore and the kind of stuff that we're not experts at. So it's a bit of a weird one, this one, but hopefully you find it useful. What interested me most, this title was given to me by Ryan. And he gave it this title of Getting Down to Business, but he gave it a kind of a strap line, which is how to be successful in web design. Which struck me as a little bit strange, really, because it kind of depends on what you consider to be success, doesn't it? For a start, I felt slightly hypocritical, giving this talk, because who says that I'm successful in web design? How do you judge what's successful and what's not? I mean, one criteria that I guess, especially Americans, right, that you guys judge success by is loads of money, isn't it? It's the American dream. I'm going to earn loads of money. In Britain, we have the European dream, which is we don't really know what we're doing. But here you have the American dream. We're going to earn loads of money. Anybody has got the potential to earn loads of money. But is that really what success is all about? Earning loads of money? Well, I mean, I came across this quote which I quite liked, which money doesn't bring you happiness and creativity. Your creativity and happiness brings money. Which I think is a really nice way of thinking about it. And I think that a lot of the time as web designers and freelancers, when we decide to go and run our own businesses, when we decide to kind of kick off for ourselves, we don't do it for a desire to earn more money. We do it because we want a better lifestyle. We want more control over the hours we work. We want to take longer holidays, spend more time with the family, or spend more time rock climbing or whatever you do. Sit in darkened rooms playing on your computer. Whatever is your thing. But it's about control, isn't it? Or perhaps we've had a really arsey boss in the past and we can't face working for somebody else again. But ultimately what we're after is a better lifestyle. Who in this room is a freelancer or runs their own agency? Put your hand up. Okay, so a fair number of you. Right, how many of you would say that since you have gone freelance, life is so much easier? Oh, good for you. Yes, well done, excellent. There's not many hands, is there, compared to the number of people in this room? So, why have we done it? What were we thinking? What was our motivation? Were we, in reality, is our lifestyle really any better? Has things actually improved? And I think in a lot of cases they haven't. And if you look at it logically, we're nuts. We're absolutely crazy, all of us. Because essentially when you go freelance or when you set up your agency, you've got instantly more responsibility, haven't you? You're no longer just responsible for design and code or whatever else you do. You're also responsible for sales and marketing and client relations and all of this kind of stuff. So we pick up more responsibility instantly. And that in turn leads to longer hours, doesn't it? Who works longer hours now than they did when they were employed by somebody else? Yeah, exactly. On top of which, we add more pressure on ourselves. Because suddenly, you don't have this salary just appearing at the end of each month, brought by magic fairies. Instead, you have to go out and find that money, don't you? So, we've got more pressure on ourselves. The other thing I think that's a big problem with going freelance or running your own agency is essentially you just screw your work-life balance, don't you? How many of you work from home? Yeah. That works well, doesn't it? So, I mean, it sounds so idealistic, doesn't it? Let's all work from home. My commute is falling down the stairs. And I can just, if I want to get something delivered in the day, that's great. I'm there, I'm at home, it's wonderful. And it means that if I just want to put the washing on, that's fine, I can do that. Or whatever else. But actually what it also means is, I just heard my computer ping at 10 o'clock at night. That means I must have an email, and it's probably really important and from a client. And then next thing you know, it's 3 in the morning and you're still working. There's no division, is there, between your work life and your home life? It all gets muddled up together. And even if you're proactive and you go, I'm going to get an office, still your business, still all stops with you. And it can take over your life. And I often, for a long time, I referred to Headscape, which is my web design agency, as this monster that you have to feed the whole time. And it wasn't like the business facilitated me and my life. It's that my life fed this monster. And it can't stay that way. You can't be that way. And essentially what I want to talk to you about today is taking control again. Taking control of your business. And I want to look at 4 problem areas as I see them. The pressure of sales. Sales is the area that we all like to ignore and we don't like to think about too much. We're going to look at the pressure of sales. We're going to look at dealing with clients. Probably one of the worst parts of being your own boss is having to deal with clients. Third, I want to look at this issue of feeling out of control. That you're feeding the animal rather than the animal facilitating your life. So this feeling of a lack of control. And then I want to look at growing your business, because I think a lot of freelancers have a real fear about what to do next in their business, where to go next. So these are the 4 areas that I'm going to look at very, very briefly. Okay, let's go through them. The pressure of sales. Okay. I think the first thing to say is when we go freelance, not many of us actually think about the sales side of things, do we? Right? The logic in our heads goes something like this. I hate my boss. I hate my boss. I'm sitting here working. I'm making him money. That's bad. I'm a really good designer. I'm a really good developer. I shouldn't be making him money. I should be making myself money. I'm going to set up by myself. Because I'm an excellent designer. People will just flock to me because of my talent. Right? And we don't really think it through entirely, do we? Or alternatively, it's, shit, I've just been made redundant. Oh, what do I do now? And then it starts that way. That's how it started with me. So when it comes to sales, to some degree, I think a lot of us just bury our heads in the sand, right? And to some degree, we can kind of get away with that most of the time, can't we? Because a lot of the time, work does just kind of come in, does just kind of turn up. We've been in a very spoilt position within the web design community that there is a high demand for what we do, and work does most of the time come in. But it doesn't always. And there's no guarantee it will continue to do so. So let's just look at how to make some improvements to our sales process. I think the first thing that's worth saying is that I think we lack focus. Most of us don't have a kind of coherent sales strategy. We have no approach that we're working on. So if I came to you and I said, who are you aiming your services at? Most of the time you would struggle to answer me. Who are you aiming your services at? And most of the time, what? SME businesses, small and medium businesses? Right, that's about as focused as something very unfocused. It's so broad, isn't it? You know, SME businesses, there must be, millions of them in the US alone. So you need to be more focused with that. You need to have a target audience and know who you're going after and who you're trying to reach. The second part of it is you need a proactive plan of how you're going to reach your audience, what it is that you're going to do. Have you got a plan about your sales? If I said to you, can you show me your sales strategy? Could you give me an answer? Chances are you probably couldn't. But it is so important. You can't build a business without some kind of sales strategy. What you're doing is you're muddling along. And actually we need to learn to be more proactive and sit down and work out what we're doing. So, let's start at the idea of targeting. The temptation is when it comes to targeting is you don't want to target, do you? Because what you feel like when you target is you're potentially turning away people. But what you're trying to do when you're marketing and selling, if you don't target, is you're trying to talk to everyone all at once, right? So imagine we were all just chatting with one another, and you were running from person to person to person, saying, hi, buy my services, hi, buy my services, hi, buy my services. You're not getting to have a proper conversation with any of those people, so they're not going to remember you or know you. So what you've got to do is focus in on just a small handful of people, rather than trying to appeal to everybody. So go niche. So you've got a couple of options here. Option number one is you go niche in the services that you provide. So I am a WordPress developer, or I am, I specialize in creating websites for old people, or whatever. So that's option number. Don't laugh. I've made a very good career out of designing websites for old people. I have as well. So, do you know, one of my biggest clients is a company that sells frozen ready meals. The average age of the target audience is 80. They make millions a year. You wouldn't believe it. Anyway, that's totally beside the point. So one option is you target a specialty of what you offer. The other is you target a niche audience. So that may typically that's a sector. So, for example, with Headscape, very early on we won a big heritage organisation that looked after British kind of stately homes and natural beauty and that kind of stuff, called National Trust. And from that we then did areas of outstanding natural beauty, we did national parks, all of these kinds of things. So we kind of specialised in heritage. And then we won a random piece of work in higher education. And then we found ourselves specialising in higher education, till now there is not a tender that goes out in higher education without us being invited to it, because we're known, we specialised in that sector. So think about a sector, think about your current clients that you've got, and think about a sector of, that those clients exist in, and whether you can target those and become an expert in providing web solutions for that sector. Then what you need to do is you need to think about, well, how am I going to reach them? It's working really well, isn't it? It's like the keyword is now missing because of the contrast on the screen. So how are you going to reach that sector? So, for example, with our higher education sector, what we did is we took the client out, our first client, we took them out for a drink, got chatting with them, had a really great time with them, and we said, what magazines do you read? What mailing lists are you on? What forums do you partake in? What conferences do you attend? And then we found from that there was one mailing list called the Institutional Web Managers Mailing List. Wow, does that sound exciting? So I joined this mailing list, and I sat and I just listened to the conversations. I learned about the kind of problems that they were participating in for 6 months without saying a word. Then I started to join in on the mailing list, and I took part in it, and I helped people with their problems, and I'd never mentioned who I was or what I was doing really, and I began to build some relationships there. Then I got asked to speak at the Institutional Web Managers Workshop, which was the kick-ass conference, I tell you, wild people they are. And so I've been keynoting there for the last several years. And all of that is because I just learnt about the sector and I participated in the sector. So you need to be looking for ways to do the same thing. Now, you're probably thinking, well, I don't have enough time to do all of this. But you need to make time. It's fundamental that you set aside regular time, week in and week out, for your marketing and sales stuff. It has to be there the whole time. And it has to be regular. Because the problem that you're going to have if you don't make it regular is that you end up in what I call the boom-bust cycle. And it works something like this, right? Oh, I've got so much work. I've got so much work to do. I haven't got time for marketing and sales. I just do my work, do my work, do my work, do my work. Okay, I've finished that project. What's next? Nothing, because I haven't been doing my sales and marketing. You see what I mean? And the problem is because sales take time to come in, to convert, to go from a lead right the way through to conversion, it's going to take time. You can end up going through dry periods. Now, you might be sitting and thinking, well, I haven't experienced this yet. And that's because we're in a very buoyant market. And we're in a good market where work does tend to come through the door. But that will not last forever. It will not last forever, and you do need to start planning regular time, week in and week out, to market, to build your brand, to engage with your audience. And I'm not talking about marketing to one another. We get this ego thing, don't we? Where we want to be the recognised web designer, right? Me speaking at conferences like this are a flipping waste of time, really. From a sales and marketing point of view, you ain't going to buy anything from me. But participating in the communities of where your clients are, like in my case, the Institutional Web Managers Workshop, that's a value. So marketing and selling is massively important. But let's move on, because otherwise we're going to run out of time. Let's move on to dealing with clients, and I just want to touch on that very briefly. The first thing we need to get into our heads is that we are a service business. You don't make websites. That is a fraction of what it is that you do. We have this perception somewhere along the line. I remember seeing someone tweet it once. Fed up with client phoning me, what would they prefer, me to talk to them or build their site? Right? And the implication being, I want to just get on with the job, leave me alone. But we are a service-based business, right? They do want you to talk to them. They want to know what's going on. They want to know what's happening. They want to feel that they're receiving a good service from you. Right? You go into a restaurant and you're not just there to eat the food. You're there for the ambience and the service that you get. And the same is true with us as web designers. Our clients expect more from us than churning out a website. At least they want us to be polite and nice and not patronising, which, let's face it, we're quite good at. Yeah, that fold, yeah, it doesn't really exist. You see, you're just not... I'm the web designer, I'm the expert, let me handle it. That's not... Or we do that kind of, you don't understand me, I'm an artist. We should be providing good customer service. The other thing I think to say is that we should be working with and not against our clients. Now, what do I mean by that? Right, okay. Who here limits the number of iterations a client can have of a design? Quite a lot of you. Why do you do that? You do that because you've had a bad experience in the past where a client has taken the piss, right? So you're going into every new relationship with every new client saying, I don't trust you. It's almost the equivalent of the RAAA. Is it the RAAA? Is that right? The music industry that makes the presumption that you're all pirates. Okay? And so they DRM everything to stop you using it. You're doing the same thing with your clients. Somebody you've never met before, you start the relationship by saying, you can't have this and you can't have that and you don't get this number of things. And then you start trying to hide things away from the client, don't you? So you take the brief, you get the information from them, and then you run over here and you start doing your secret work, don't you? No peeking. And then you go, ta-da! And you're shocked because they don't like it. Okay? So we need to change the way that we work with our clients to work in a collaborative relationship with them rather than in this confrontational relationship where we start off on the wrong foot. We start off by saying that they are the enemy. We need to take them through a process where we're educating them all of the time, showing them stuff, explaining why we've done things, taking the time to engage with them every step of the way. We need to be keeping them informed. Do you know the clients that micromanage you and say, move it slightly to the left or make my logo bigger and all that kind of stuff? They do that for two reasons. One is that they don't understand and we don't bother to explain. Secondly, they do it because it's a control thing. They want to control the situation, right? And that's because they're not trusting you. And they're not trusting you because you're not keeping them informed. They're feeling out of control because they don't know what's going on, so they're trying to take some control back themselves. So that's why it's so important for you to actually take the time to keep your clients informed. If they know what's going on, then they're more likely to go with you, because you're saying, yeah, well, I've done this now, and I'm about to start this, and this is why I've done this, and there's this back and forth dialogue, so they don't feel the need to take control. The other aspect of it is that ta-da moment that I talked about. You know, I've done a wonderful design, worked on it for weeks, feel super committed to it, really done a good job, best piece of work I've ever done, spent longer on it than I should have, to be honest, but, you know, I'm really proud of my work, show it to the client, and they go, shit, that's awful, that's not what I want. And you go, what do you mean? I spent ages on this, you should love it. Now, that's because what you've done is you've surprised them, you've shocked them, you've shown them something, but you haven't led them through that process. So take, for example, design is a really good example of this. Right, so our design process at Headscape works like this. We sit down with the client, we take a brief, we go through the normal process you guys do. We show them a few websites that we think have got elements in that they might be appropriate for them. We don't ask them what websites they like, but we show them stuff and we discuss it, so we have a bit of a conversation. Then we go away, and from that list of websites we create some mood boards, which we just throw together in a few hours, not a big deal. And we do loads of different versions, and then we go back and we discuss those with the client and say, what do you think of these mood boards? Which one do you like? Should we have this bit from that one? And we pick and choose, and you know, notice how these mood boards are based on the sites we discussed earlier, etc. Then we sit them down and we start wireframing everything up with them in the room. So they scribble out some stuff and we scribble out some stuff, and it's all great and wonderful. So we've got the mood boards now, we've got the business objectives from the initial briefing, we've got our wireframes. Now we go away and produce a design. So when we now show them a design, it's as much their design as it is ours, because they've seen the initial sites that we've discussed, they've seen the mood boards and been involved in the mood boarding process, they've been involved in the wireframing process. It's their design. There is no surprise there. And that makes an enormous difference. The earlier and more often you engage with a client, the less likely they are to reject a design, because they feel engaged with that design. They feel it's their design and they're not going to reject their own work. And not just to include them in a, right, I'm now going to wireframe in front of you and show you this, but to actually get them doing it as well, and to encourage them that they're having good ideas. So avoid surprises is another big part of the process. And then also I always encourage people to keep talking post-project as well. After a project ends, don't think that's the end of the relationship. I mean, from a sales and marketing point of view, definitely you want to keep the relationship going. But it's also good to have a kind of post-project debrief, because that's when you can say, well, effectively say to them, you know, so what did you think of the customer service you received? Was it good? Did you enjoy it? Was the process painless? Were you happy with the end result? Then why aren't you telling other people to employ me? Perhaps that's said a bit bluntly, but essentially that's what we're talking about. And also, this is the opportunity to say, okay, so what's next? So you know when a client comes to you halfway through the project and said, I've had an idea. It would be great to add this feature. And you go, oh, God, you know. But actually, let's be fair, most clients aren't going to, they're not experts like you, they're not going to think of everything up front, because they're not used to the process. They are going to think of things halfway through. And okay, you want to avoid scope creep, and I understand that. But from their point of view, they're really excited about this new idea that's just occurred to them. Well, don't squash that. Instead say, brilliant idea, love it. Let's move that into phase 2. Okay? And this is your occasion to talk about phase 2 and what's going to come next and where we're going from here. Because I think a lot of the trouble is a lot of clients almost view the web a bit like print. So you produce the final pieces, it goes to print, and then that's it. It's forever stuck. It can never be changed again. Of course, the web isn't like that. You can be constantly tweaking and changing your website over time. So this is, you know, this is a vital part of the process. This is where you can talk about all those cool ideas that they've had, or not so cool ideas, and work out where to go next with the project. So make sure you do that as well. Now, I mean, I'm doing very much a whistle-stop tour here of some of the different issues. This is what I'm going to. I don't know whether you're coming to my workshop on Wednesday, but we spent a whole day going over this kind of stuff. So apologies if it's all a bit fast and furious. Feel free to come and chat with me afterwards about any of this kind of stuff. Right. Let's move on to the bit that I'm most passionate about, which is feeling out of control. I'm not passionate about feeling out of control, by the way. I'm passionate about being in control. And that's possibly because it's something that I've experienced personally in the 8 years that I've run Headscape. And something I think I've got better at, and hopefully some of the advice that I can give might help you. Are you this person? Because I certainly was. Who lies in bed worrying about their business? Not that many, actually. That's good, good. I'm pleased for you. But I certainly did. And it was an area of massive stress to me. Not necessarily I was worrying about the future of the business, but I was worrying about, you know, a client's project or what's going on. It goes round and round and round in your head. And even if you're not worrying about it, you shouldn't be expending mental process on your work in your leisure time. That's where the work-life balance gets screwed, isn't it? Because you come up with an idea at 9 o'clock at night when you're supposed to be talking to your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever, and you just say, give me just a sec, I'll be just back, right? And off you go into the office, and then you said you're going to be 5 minutes, and you turn up an hour and a half later. All right? So having that kind of work-life balance is screwed, and having these things going around in your head is not the way it should be. So how do we deal with this? Well, a big part of it for me is having a routine. I have a very strict routine in my working life. So I get up in the morning, and when I get at work, I mean, people do all kinds of things, like some people get dressed for work, and they go downstairs and they sit in their home office with their suit on. You know, I'm not one of those people. But my routine does always begin the same way, which is I start every day with a start-up routine, where I essentially go through all my tasks for the day and I work out what I'm supposed to be doing. Equally, at the end of and this is the important bit, at the end of the day, I will do a shutdown routine, where I know I sound weird, humour me, but it's a really worthwhile thing to do. So you sit down at the end of the day, and before you stop work, you say, right, I'm going to go through everything I've done today, I'm going to look at all that I've done, I'm going to look at everything I've got to do tomorrow. I'm going to brainstorm and get everything out of my head relating to work. And then I close my computer. And that is it. I now have my iPad, which is my home messing around thing. My work computer is closed. I shut down. I finish the day. And I think that's a really valuable thing, that if you want to maintain yourself over the long term, you've got to start taking control. A lot of you guys are young. I'm not. I'm old. And the advice that I can give you as an old person is there is a serious potential of you burning out. We work too hard. And the reason we work too hard is because we love what we do. And if you love what you do, surely it doesn't matter. But it does. You need to have a life outside of web design. You need to have off time. You need to have time away from your computer. You will burn out if you keep going. You need to have a start to your day and an end to your day. And if I can leave you with one thing, that would be it. I know people that have got stomach ulcers, that have been crippled by RSI, that have had mental breakdowns from running their own web design businesses. We live at a ridiculous pace. We relearn our skill set faster than anybody else does. What we learned 2 years ago is obsolete. We need to take care of ourselves, and this is an important part of it. Sorry, you didn't know you were going to get a serious lecture. I do apologise. Let's move on then. Just more silly things. One list to rule them all. Who here keeps a list of all the work they've got to do? Is there any hand that's not gone up? If it hasn't, then I'm amazed. Is it all just in your head? Do you have a photographic memory? Well done. Who has more than one list? Yeah. Who has it on their iPhone, on a bit of paper they keep beside their bed? Who has some of it in their head, some of it on their MacBook, some of it on their iPad, some of it on the toilet roll because they're sitting on the toilet? And, you know, we end up with lists all over the place. And what that does is that leaves you in a perpetual state of anxiety. Am I going to remember that? Am I going to remember that? Where did I write that down? If I leave it there, am I going to remember it? And if you've ever read the book Getting Things Done by David Allen, I'd highly recommend it. And this was, honestly, I know a lot of people don't get on with it, but for me it was an absolute life changer. It was going from that point of having all these different lists all over the place to bringing them all together in one place. All right? So I receive an email in, and either that, when that email arrives in, if there's a task in it, it goes into OmniFocus. In my particular case, use whichever product you wish. There are other products on the market, you know, blah, blah, blah. But for me, the task goes into OmniFocus. If I'm lying in bed at night and something pops into my head, it goes into OmniFocus on the iPhone and is synced across. If I am at a conference, if I'm somewhere with no connectivity, I write it down on a bit of paper. When I get back to my desk, it goes into an inbox that then gets processed into OmniFocus. Everything ends up in OmniFocus. So what it means is that I keep nothing in my head. And the people, I've occasionally posted my OmniFocus task list on Twitter, and people have laughed at me because it includes everything. I even have, now please don't, is my wife actually in? Yeah, she is. I'm embarrassed to say this, right? I have a task in OmniFocus that recurs once a month that says, be romantic. And I really do. I mix up home life and work life. It all just goes into OmniFocus. So my brain is just free of all that clutter and that hassle. So when I switch off at the end of the day, I do. Completely, because I know it's there. I know it's safe. I know it's in control. When I do my startup routine at the beginning of the day, I know it's safe. I know it's there. I see it every day. At the end of every day, I go through the list. I know it's there. I know it's safe. I know it's been dealt with. I don't need to worry about it. I don't waste mental processes going over and over the same thing, going, I must remember to do that tomorrow. I must remember to do that tomorrow. I must remember to do that tomorrow. And the great thing as well with these systems is they have something called context with them, which means that you remember to do the right things at the right occasions. When do you remember to buy batteries for your torch? Is it when you're standing in the store with the batteries in front of you, or is it the next time you try and turn your torch on and discover the batteries are dead? You remember it when the torch is dead. But if you have something like OmniFocus, which is when you're out shopping and it has a list of all the stuff you need to buy that includes batteries, it avoids these kind of problems. Or when you're talking to someone in particular, you can look at the list of things that you've got to talk about with that person. It's taking the mental processes out of organising yourself, and I highly recommend it. The other part relating to this is inbox zero. Who has more than 10 items at this moment in their inbox? Shame on you! Your inbox is not a place to keep stuff. It's a place to... Inbox. Inbox comes from the idea of inbox in work offices, right? That is, it comes in, it gets dealt with, and it goes out, right? My wife's inbox, okay, on her desk, her physical inbox, is that deep with stuff, right? You can't find anything. You can't find anything. And a lot of people do the same thing with email. My inbox is completely empty, and I'll tell you why. An email arrives in. It's either spam, gets rid of it. It's either something that's just a reference, I need to know about it, gets filed. Or it's an action, in which case it goes into OmniFocus. One list, remember. And I constantly got an empty inbox. And do you know, that is so nice. It is so nice to have an empty inbox. It made me weep when Gmail introduced priority inbox. So in effect, what they've done is create an inbox on top of an inbox. So today, an action for today, declare inbox bankruptcy. Take everything from your inbox and file it, archive it, all, boom, and start again. You'll feel so good about it. The other thing with inboxes is they take over your life. Who has set up notifications so it goes bing every time you get an email? Okay, not that many. I'm impressed. Turn off the bing. It's pointless. Turn it off on your iPhone as well. And only check your email 3 times a day. Check it once in the morning, once at lunchtime, and once at the end of the day. I can't do that! That's impossible! Well, 90% of the time when it goes bing, it's with a bit of spam, isn't it? Or bing, I've copied you in on this email that you probably don't care about. Alright? 90% of email is that. 10% is what is actually useful. It's a client contacting you, whatever. And you might go, well, I need to respond to clients urgently, instantly. You were talking about good customer service. Well, to be honest, I don't think a few hours in most cases is a problem. However, if you are an exception, if you honestly do get emails that come through that have to be acted on there and then I'd recommend this service. Cipher. Right? If you use Gmail, this is just brilliant. I love this thing. You can go in and you can essentially, it works out for you what's important and what's not. And you could go in and customize it as you want to. Then you turn off the notifications on everything. Turn it off on your desktop, on your iPhone, on everything. But you install on your iPhone the little Cipher app. And it will only notify you about emails that are important. I very rarely, probably once a day, will get a ping from Cipher. The rest of it is junk. And can wait until one of my 3 periods of time. Take control of your email. If you have any idea, because every time it goes ping, you have to check, don't you? You have to. And you go and check, and that takes 10 seconds maybe, if we're being good, right? Now, a lot of email clients ping every 1 minute, every 5 minutes. You add that up. That's a hell of a lot of wasted time. So, empty your inbox. Right, the other thing that I want to say on this is to work in sprints. This is something else I've started doing. I'm distraction boy. When it comes to Twitter, Facebook, email, the web, I'll read anything to avoid actually doing some work. Seriously, the most dull things. Do you ever do that in history lessons at school? I used to do it in history lessons at school. I knew that if I got my history teacher talking about golf, he wouldn't talk about history, because he was into golf. And somehow I thought it'd be more interesting to listen to him talk about golf than to learn something about history. They're equally bad, really. But anyway, that's beside the point. A distraction technique. So what I've done is I've started using this technique. Essentially what it does is it's really simple. You set a timer for 25 minutes. You say, I'm going to do nothing other than work for 25 minutes. Right? Close everything else. 25 minutes of solid work. Then I get a 5-minute break. Right? And then I do another 25 minutes of solid work and a 5-minute break. And do you know what? It's addictive. You become obsessed with how many 25-minute bursts you can do in a day. Right? And actually it works really, really well. And what's really satisfying is you get to the end of the day and you realise you've done 6 hours of solid work in a day. And most of us have no clue how much real work we do in a day, because of Twitter and Facebook and all these other things that we do. Try it. Just try it. It might not suit you, but try it. The final thing that I want to say on this particular subject is reuse, reuse, reuse. Okay? So what do I mean by that? I think oftentimes we reinvent the wheel continually. Or so, for example, every time we start a new site, we recode everything from scratch. And we need to start being smarter about that in terms of having, CSS modules, HTML modules of elements. How many times can you code up a news listing? They're almost on every site you do, so why not use consistent code? Okay, there's that kind of thing. Then there's, even within design, there are opportunities to reuse stuff as well. But beyond that as well. So, for example, something I do continually to kind of combine work and marketing and sales. So what I'll do is I'm working on something, I'm working with a client, and I go, oh, that's quite interesting. So I turn it into an audio boot, right? And I release my little audio file saying, oh, I did this today, and it made me think of this, and there's a bit of marketing, right? As I pronounce my words of wisdom to the world. And then I maybe turn that into a blog post, right? And then that blog post turns into a podcast, and that podcast turns into a presentation. I'm reusing the same content again and again and again. I seem to have turned myself off. Story of my life. So reusing stuff is very worthwhile. Okay, I just want to finish by talking about growing your business. Sorry, I've overrun. A lot of us have this fear of hiring. We worry about hiring people. We worry about taking on other people. And so what we do instead is we work as groups of freelancers together. But I would argue actually that's not a very profitable way of working, because you give away most of your profitability. So if you've ever thought about hiring but have been too scared about it, I just wanted to leave you with a couple of words saying, have the guts. We started off as just 3 of us. There's now 18 of us. And having that guts to hire is really worthwhile. Working as groups of freelancers is great, but it kills your kills your margins, and essentially, if the leaders come in via you, turns you into a project manager. And none of us want to be a project manager. We also, when it comes to hiring, I'd encourage you to hire against your weaknesses. What we have this desire to do is hire someone like ourselves, but often that's not a very good way to go. So what we do is we hire someone like us, and then what do we end up doing? Project management and sales, which you might not enjoy. You might enjoy it, I enjoy it, but you might not. So hire against your weaknesses. I know I'm massively unorganized, so we hired project managers, okay? Hire against your weaknesses rather than your strengths. I mean, you do have an option to clone yourself, you know, to hire someone just like you. But if you do, make sure they really are just like you, right? Don't hire a junior version of yourself that can't deal with clients or can't do the sales or whatever else. If you are going to hire someone like yourself, then they have to really be like you. Otherwise, you're going to end up doing a job you don't want to do. Also, do consider hiring part-time as well. Oops. Because, you know, you might want to get somebody in just to do your bookkeeping or to do your invoicing or that kind of stuff. Look at trying to offload some of the bits and pieces that you do. You might want to hire a virtual assistant. Something that we've done is we use a service called Moneypenny. And Moneypenny is essentially takes our phone calls as they come in. So she gets rid of all the recruitment agencies and all of this is a real person that answers the phone. All the recruitment agencies, all of the people wanting to sell us stuff, and she only puts the clients through. Really worthwhile just having that kind of virtual assistant. You can also get virtual assistants to organise plane flights to you or pretty much anything else. So I just wanted to touch on that to end with. So what is achieving a success ultimately about, to conclude? Well, it's about having a sales plan. It's about acting like a service-based business. It's about having a routine that you work with, and it's also embracing the idea of growing your business and not being afraid of it. So that's pretty much all I wanted to share with you today. You can follow me on Twitter at BoagWorld. At boagworld.com/talks/success. You will get this video. Is there now, at least it should be, if my automatic posting works. It's there now, and you can check it out and listen to it back. Okay, so that's all I've got to say. Thank you very much.